And particularly, you guys just did a podcast on this, how to fix this problem in America, that a lot of Americans don't really get why we're so special. Is it fixable?
It is. And look, part of the reason we're doing this, I'm doing this podcast with the Bulwark, is because I think we spend too much time fixating on our problems and not enough talking about solutions. And solutions are empowering. If people feel that, you know, we're just constantly looking at what's wrong and what's bad and not saying that we can solve it as a democracy, no wonder they get depressed. You need to make citizens feel empowered, and that's part of why we need to have a conversation about solutions journalism. But with regard to civics, I mean, this is bedrock. We need to teach people, students, young people, not only that America is a great blessing in the world, but also that citizenship in a democracy requires responsibilities as well as rights.
Yeah.
And we need a common currency of communication to be able to carry forward the American experiment. And that's why it's so essential. And it can be done. And some bills have been put forward, bipartisan bills, to reintroduce it, but much more needs to be done.
Think about this, and not in terms of Republican and Democrats, because in the end, we're all Americans. We should all want the same thing. But there is this divide, right? And I can't help but think about it, that today there was so much talk about democracy, 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 and yet national pride scores, this is July 2nd, 2024, so long before the election, Republicans 59%, Democrats 34%, extremely proud to be an American. There's an irony, is there not, in this divide between Democrats who want to talk so much about protecting democracy, yet don't seem to celebrate or believe in American exceptionalism and democracy.
I disagree with you there. I think there's no question that polling has shown we have not been teaching people to be proud of our country enough. And you see, particularly among young people, you see a problem with this. We have not been teaching the American story. And by the way, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we need, because we're the first nation in the history of the world founded on an idea and not a tribal identity, America's uniquely dependent on unifying stories. And that's where we've fallen short in recent years. We've taken our eyes off the ball.
But John, hold on. I hear you. You can say that it's not partisan, but the polling reflects that it is partisan. And I think you say unifying stories. It is Republicans who, for a long time, over the past 20 years, have been talking about American exceptionalism, and Democrats have been tearing that down. Now, that may change, and we saw Kamala Harris try to have a bunch of American flags at the DNC. I was there. But I'm not sure that really changes how people feel Democrats feel.
I think that is a perception problem, and it goes back to probably protests over the Vietnam War. This is a problem that Democrats need to deal with. It's one of the reasons you heard Hakeem Jeffries talk in the campaign about the 4 Fs. Democrats need to reclaim the flag, freedom, faith, and fairness. I agree with that. I think Democrats need to promote the social gospel. We need to celebrate the American flag. We need to celebrate patriotism. I wrote an essay about this on July 4th about reclaiming the American flag because it belongs to all of us. My concern about there are 2 issues. One is the fact that we have not been celebrating America and teaching American history in a more unifying way. And as you heard in my podcast, one of the things I've proposed for years is that every graduating high school senior should be able to take and pass the same naturalization exam that new citizens do. That's something that should be a baseline. I think the second piece, though, if you're talking about American exceptionalism, I mean, to me, because it is January 6th, and indeed what Kamala Harris did today is what previous presidents and vice presidents have done. It should be the norm. It wasn't for 1 year. And my concern about the attack on the Capitol 4 years ago was that it dented American exceptionalism in an indelible way.
I hear you. I was there for it. I was almost attacked. I was certainly cornered, as was my sister. I actually see it a little bit differently. Yes, it was terrible what happened. I see what Mike Pence did and the fact that the American idea continued through. Actually really reassuring, right? And I think that's what voters told us when Democrats ran on this and they rejected it. But it goes back to this thing that Joe Biden used to always say about priorities. Take a listen.
My dad used to have an expression, for real. He said, Joey, when someone said, I tell you what I value, he'd say, don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget. I'll tell you what you value. Show me your budget.
Do you see any support for putting money where everyone's mouth is, and I think people agree that civics needs to be taught, the American idea needs to be taught, and changing what's happening?
Well, that's a bit of an open-ended question, but if I'm hearing you correctly, first of all, I mean, budgets are philosophical documents, right? I mean, they say, what are your priorities? And I think one of the problems has been we have not been teaching civics education. It's been squeezed out of the curriculum, and this goes back decades. This is not a new problem. And we see you reap what you sow. And that's why I think we desperately need to reinvest in civics education again.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.